Chris Saxman, former member of the House of Delegates and current executive director of Virginia Free. That's the Foundation for Research and Economic Education, founded in 1988, when people thought then the business community was under threat from anti-business legislators. Can you imagine what they would think today? Lynn Mitchell, lead off.
I am Lynn Mitchell. I am editor-in-chief over at Bearing Drift, and I am a political junkie, and we cover everything we can.
Okay, Brian Sheneman.
Hi, I'm Brian Shaneman. I'm the former editor-in-chief of Bearing Drift. Currently, I am a maritime lawyer in Washington. I do a lot of lobbying. I've run for the House of Delegates as well as for local office, and served as elections administrator in Fairfax County, the largest jurisdiction in Virginia. Lifelong Republican, and I'm happy to be here.
And you're looking very distinguished today, Brian.
Thank you. I grew the COVID beard just for the show.
You need to stop doing that. Okay, Michael.
Hi, I'm Mike Allers Jr. I am an educator, writer, and contributor with the Bearing Drift and co-host of Grand New Podcast with my fellow co-host, Matt Colt-Hall.
Okay, Andrea Epps.
I am Andrea Epps. I am just me. I just like to write and have opinions about political issues.
Okay, you probably want to turn off one of those features. We'll get you up on the screen twice. Merle Russ.
Hi, I'm Merle Russ, a retired military officer, a former defense executive, and now contributor to Bearing Drift and a wine grower in Loudoun County.
Okay, wine growing, good stuff. DJ McGuire.
I'm DJ McGuire from Hampton Roads, Virginia. I am a co-host of the More Perfect Union podcast, senior contributor to Bearing Drift, and as I refer to myself, the conservative feather of the Democratic Party.
Good to have one of those. Matthew.
Chris, it's such a pleasure to be on with you again. My name is Matt Colt-Hall. I'm a senior contributor at BearingDrift.com, and I am so excited to be in on the conversation today.
Well, it's great to have you here. You've been in the news a little bit lately. We'll get back to the 5th district when we talk about that, but let's dive into a couple issues here. And again, let's not all shout at one time. Let's get a hand up so I can get and this conversation as we go on, but is audible for our listeners and those who will watch and listen later after we record this and put it up on YouTube, and then you can put it everywhere you want. But one of the obvious questions in Virginia politics today is, what direction is Virginia Republican Party going, or has it hit rock bottom? And then we'll have some conversations about potential statewide candidates in the Republican Party for 2021, as well as for the Democratic Party. Let's leave off with Brian Sheneman.
I think the biggest issue right now is every time I feel like the party has hit its all-time low, something happens and we go lower. So I'm very afraid to say that we've finally hit rock bottom, because I don't think we've really seen that. I think, frankly, at all levels, we're seeing dysfunction within the party apparatus. At the local levels, we're seeing it at the Commonwealth-wide level. And I think that it's trickling up, unfortunately, to the federal level too. So I think in the end, what we really need to do is, we as Republicans in Virginia need to sit down and kind of figure out what exactly are we about. Do we still believe in the Republican creed? Are we still a big tent party that's welcoming to anyone that shares our ideals? And are we really committed to getting people elected in Virginia? Because I'll tell you, if our goal is to elect people to represent us and to elect people who are conservative and who represent the Republican values, we're not doing a very good job of it. And I think it's time that we refocus our efforts on that more than anything else. A lot of people have tried to turn the Republican Party into a debating society, and that's not been effective in getting folks elected.
Okay, let's anyone else? Mike?
I think the Republican Party has a Chaz problem. All right, right now the Republican Party is the city of Seattle. It is a beautiful city. It has a lot of great features to it. But unfortunately, right now, a part of it has been held by radicals with unrealistic demands, and the mayor and the governor is allowing them to exist. And I think right now the same thing has happened with the Republican Party. A good 35% is holding the rest of the party hostage, whether it's at these conventions or whether it's at whether it's an unfair elections, blocking people off and not letting everyone in the party vote, not growing the party. So we have a Chaz problem. We're held hostage by radicals.
Okay, I like the analogy. I didn't think you were going to get there, but you managed to. I appreciate that. DJ is shaking his head no.
I am reminded that the last time the Republican Party had a statewide primary, Corey Stewart was the winner. I don't think that's something that is relegated to a small segment of the party. I think the party has a lot more problems than it realizes, and not just at the Virginia level, but at the federal level too. Jonathan V. Last of the Bulwark had in his newsletter a couple days back, he said that the Republican Party is no longer a party about winning elections, as Brian noted, but it's more a party about grievances, and it's more a party about emotional catharsis. And that kind of party enjoys losing elections more than winning them. And getting to the 5th district, I think there would be quite a few Republicans who would be happier to see the 5th district be lost than the 5th district be won. And one of them, frankly, is probably going to be Ben Klein, because it means Democrats in the General Assembly will put Roanoke in the 5th to shore up insert Democrat here, and he never has to worry about that city again. But I digress, sorry.
A bad digression. Anybody else want to chip in here? Andrea, go ahead.
Well, I can't disagree with anything that said. I would add that the incipient plan of reducing the size of the state central committee, the whole keep it small, control it all idea that's been floated around. This is actually a quote from a letter that was floating around. It says that the change will assure accountability to the district-wide and statewide electorate, and markedly reduce the variable number of voting members of the state central committee. And the problem with that is that there's no accountability now. So if you want to reduce it to make it easier to lobby people, it's going to make it worse rather than better. And I came into the whole Bearing Drift thing thinking really with no opinion personally on whether or not a primary was better than a convention. And I have no doubt in my mind after the last couple of years that without a statewide primary, statewide office, and actually winning without knowing what the broader section of the electorate wants is not going to be possible.
Okay. Anyone else want to chip in there? Just hearkening back to the 2018, we'll get you in a second there, Merle. Corey Stewart won by a little over 5,000 votes over Nick Freitas, 44-8 to 43-1. So it was a fairly close contest, and they did have 270, over 300,000 voters that day. So yeah, Merle, go ahead. Merle? Not Merle?
Did we lose him?
I don't know if Merle's responding there. Mike, you want to pick up on that one?
Yeah. Actually, I'd like to push back on this. Yes, Corey Stewart, complete abomination, and a huge stain on the Republican Party. However, I think it comes down to, once again, going back to my Chaz analogy, how we deal with these people. Not one person was willing to call Corey Stewart a racist on stage or a white supremacist or say, quite frankly, sit down, get out of here. You're not welcome in the party. We treated him as a serious contender. We gave him space, and a lot of people were afraid of his supporters. And quite frankly, you can't be held hostage by these people. So I would say it wasn't really a reflection of the Republican Party as a whole, but our willingness to condemn him. And if we're not going to push back, people are going to think it's okay to vote for somebody like that.
Well, if I can back up on that as well, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but here's the thing that I discovered when I was interviewing Corey Stewart for Virginia Free. I asked him about illegal immigration, and he said we should increase legal immigration from 1 million a year nationally to 2 million a year. I said, okay, would you take from the current population of existing illegals currently residing in the United States and make that part of that new $1 million per year, sort of draw down whatever the 11, 12, 14, 15 million it's considered to be? Would you consider that in that new 1 million? Corey Stewart looked at us and said, yes, I would, but quickly said, but that's not amnesty. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know what you're going to call it. So I reported it. I put it out there, and immediately folks in Hampton Roads said, oh, Saxman must be getting it wrong. And I'm like, no, that's pretty much verbatim what he actually said. I mean, they don't want to believe what the guy actually said while he's playing both sides of the coin. Let's go to DJ McGuire, and then we'll go to Brian.
Yeah, the problem is the sides of the coin that he feels he has to play. With all due respect, Michael, I think you're confusing the hostages for the bank customers. The reality is, or the hostage takers for the bank customers. You know, the one elephant in the room that we haven't talked about is the President of the United States. How can you condemn Corey Stewart on a Republican debate stage for the things he says when the President of the United States says things that are similar or, in fact, worse? So the fact of the matter is, the room that Corey Stewart and folks of his ilk have within the party, whether they're just selling out to the racists or whether they are actually racist, comes from the room given within the party by the president himself and all of the people who voted for him in primaries and the people who refused to even consider any challengers to him in the primary this year.
Okay, Brian, thoughts?
I think we're fixating too much on Corey Stewart, and I think we need to take a step back here. I think
Fair.
For every election, you need two things to work properly in order to get somebody elected. First, you have to have a fair and impartial process to determine who the nomination is going to be. And two, you need good nominees who want to run, who have a legitimate chance of winning. 2018, as far as I'm concerned, Corey Stewart got the nomination because nobody else wanted it. There was nobody else that wanted to lose to Tim Kaine. It just wasn't going to happen. So why would a solid candidate come out of the woodwork who was sitting in an existing job, somebody like a Congressman Whitman, somebody like, well, I guess Rob would probably be the only one I can think of off the top of my head that would have the gravitas to run statewide at this point at a federal level. Why would they take the opportunity to lose? So I think 2018, it was a weak field. The result was we got a weak candidate who lost. Now that's not always going to exist, but I will say that part of the decision-making process on whether or not you want to get into a race is always going to be, do you think you can win the nomination fight? And the more fair that nomination fight is, the more likely it is you're going to get good candidates who are going to go out there and run hard on the issues, go out there, talk to voters, work through the means that they need to do in order to win. And unfortunately, as we saw last week in the 5th District, too many of our nominating contests, particularly the ones that are party run, are run for the benefit of a small group of people who want to act as kingmakers that are not reflective of the overall electorate. And the result is we get bad candidates who get nominated because we have bad candidates who run. Good people don't want to get involved, and we lose elections. And we got to start there. If we don't start there from the ground up of providing fair processes that encourage good candidates, we're never going to win another race.
Can't disagree with much of that. Let's start talking about and move over to the 2021 cycle, which we are now in. We already have declared candidates for both political parties. I want to start because we're talking about the Republican Party right now. Let's talk about their prospective candidates in 2021 and what it looks like. I think with the increasing number of candidates and frankly quality candidates that are starting to dip their toe in the water, I think they're sensing a Trump defeat in the fall. And if that's the case, a Biden presidency makes it more likely, maybe not likely, but more likely that a Republican has at least a shot at winning statewide and rebuilding the party. So let's talk about from the top down, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, candidates that you're hearing about or have come in contact with or are rumored to hear are about this or would like to see run. Let's start with governor. Anyone have a conversation there they want to start?
I want to address something quick, Chris, if I could. I want to address the comments made by Amanda Chase last night on social media about Senator McClellan. And I truly
this time.
She said some incredibly racist things, insinuating that because Senator McClellan is part of the Black Caucus of the legislature, that she doesn't represent, quote unquote, all Virginians. And I'm starting to wonder if Amanda Chase is George Wallace in a skirt. Like, I'm starting to wonder. Well, that is true. Starting,
Nice.
she's already been there. But I'm starting to really get concerned that, you know, we're wrapping ourselves in Confederate flags and we're not presenting a message for everyone. We're presenting a message for the white evangelical person in Southwest Virginia, and we're not presenting a message for all Virginians. And if we don't present a message for all Virginians that everyone can get behind, we're doomed.
Yep.
Okay, on that little bit of ray of sunshine there as the storms roll in western Henrico County here.
Fairfax is getting it pretty good too, Chris.
Yeah, it's rumbling all up.
The Roanoke Valley is soggy.
Chris, to Matt's point, as far as I'm concerned, Senator Chase is not a realistic or legitimate candidate, so I don't want to give her a lot of airtime. I think she's disqualified herself through the things that she has been saying and the way she's been campaigning over the last couple of weeks. So as far as I'm concerned, she may be the only announced candidate right now, but I think that's likely because many of the other candidates are going to respect the fact that we do have an election in November. We have congressional races in November, and we want to let those folks have the airtime right now because they need to get elected, and then we'll deal with governor's race next year. But as far as I'm concerned, the only person that I think has a credible shot of getting elected governor I feel like he's the only one that really has the opportunity and the chance that unite all parts of the party.
I didn't get who was that?
Rob Boatman from Northern Virginia, first district. I think he's the only one that's got the gravitas. He's the only one that's got the statewide connections. That if he decides to run for governor, I think he's got a legitimate chance to win. Other than that, I don't think there really is much else.
Mike?
I really think Pete Snyder's leading the way with the 30-day fund. I think that really puts him to the front of the pack. If it is Terry McAuliffe on the Democrat side, you need someone that's going to rake in as much money as Terry, if not more. So I would say Pete Snyder. My dream candidate would be Barbara Comstock. I think, once again, if you can't win Northern Virginia, or at least make a dent in Northern Virginia, you can't win the state at all. Although we all come from different parts of the state, we all know. Without Nova, without any part, of the crescent there, you can't win. And you need someone that's going to play in those suburbs. And I think Barbara would be a phenomenal candidate if she's willing to dust her cape off.
Don't disagree. My sense in my conversations with Barbara is that she's not. But let's consider Pete Snyder and his, because he's been rumored, he's been out there kicking the tires for over a year now, clearly. The 30-day fund, brilliant stuff, helping people out, great political story to tell if you're going to tell a statewide story. But will that translate into primary voters in the Republican Party, which is about 300,000 now, if you look at the 18 model, or a convention? And let's just roll those dynamics up.
So let me say this.
Why don't you go ahead, Matt?
Pete Snyder can win either a primary or a convention so long as I want him to be more punchy. I want him to be out there. And I would say this to him myself. I'm not saying this, behind his back or anything. I would say it to him himself. He's got to be able to say that Amanda Chase is unelectable. I am the one who can win. I can raise the money. I can do the right thing. But he's got to be able to stand up, and I know he can do it. I know Pete Snyder can stand up to her. But it's got to be done, and we can't spend our time going, oh, well, Amanda said something again. We can't really, we can't really challenge her for it. No, you got to be aggressive, and you got to say, look, you're not a Republican. You don't get to say that and be a Republican. Case closed.
DJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not really sure I mean, perhaps in January of 2021, you may be able to read Amanda Chase out of the Republican Party. But until January 20th of 2021, you can't do that and have any credibility. Not with the President of the United States right now.
Well, that's
Andrea?
what I was going to say is that I'm not really sure that she is a member of the Republican Party. Only I don't know what the dynamic is in Chesterfield at the moment with her status. But I agree with Matt and with Brian. I think Rob Whitman would be a good candidate. I think Pete Snyder would be a good candidate. I think that Rob Whitman brings a different dynamic as far as who goes where when, but yeah, I think he would do well. But without breaking down the uncomfortable point of Trump being at the top of the ticket and whether or not we're going to end up in a convention choosing a gubernatorial candidate, until we can do those two things, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, Brian.
I'll be honest. Look, Pete Snyder's a friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time. He and I get along very well. I would much rather see him run for lieutenant governor again than run for governor. I feel like the chief executive role, we need somebody that has some kind of elected office experience. And I love Pete, but he hasn't done it. So I'd love to see him run for LG again. I think he'd be a shoo-in for the nomination for lieutenant governor if he decides to go after it. And I think he'd serve very well. And even if it ends up being, I could see it being something along the lines of Bill Bowling's first term, when you are, the governor's a Democrat and you're a Republican. So I could see that happening. I think that would be interesting. So I hope that he is at least considering running for LG again, because I think he could pull that off pretty easily.
Okay, anyone else on the speculation front? What have you heard? Let's get into some good rumor mongering if we can. That's always far more interesting for our viewers and our listeners if you get into some really good, what have you heard? Because I've heard a number of things. I've had candidates call me, and those are private conversations, and I will not speculate or offer those for rumors. But what have you heard that you want to report on?
I keep hearing this wild and crazy rumor that Bill Carrico is going to do it. And let me say, as someone from Southwest Virginia, Bill, is a very nice person. But, I mean, it's 2020. The party has moved away from that Bible Belt conservatism, with the exception of the 5th District.
Has it?
I think it has. I think we've moved farther, and we've moved away from that. And I don't think it's Bill Carrico could have run for governor
the party
20
or the
years
state?
ago.
The party or the state?
The state. I think the state.
Okay.
The state's
Okay.
moved. The state's moved a long way from where Bill Carrico is, and I don't think that's going to be a good shot.
Anybody else on the top of the ticket? Yeah, Mike, you got your hands up there?
Yeah, I read recently, I keep reading, that George Allen might make a comeback.
Wow.
So I have
I
read
heard
that. And, he took some time off. Especially going against a titan like Terry or whoever the Democrats put up. I mean, Jennifer McClellan is not going to be she's not going to go easy if that's the nominee. Plus, we don't know if, talking about rumor mills, Terry might see the field so clogged up, he might take a job in the Biden administration and pass his gravitas off to LeVar.
No.
LeVar's a non-factor.
DJ?
No.
LeVar's a non-factor.
Yeah, no. LeVar.
Hands up.
So that's okay. That's okay. But Matt is right. LeVar's going to have enough trouble getting reelected mayor of Richmond at this point. But that, in terms of what the Democrats will do in 2021, we really don't know. A Biden victory might encourage, might lead Democratic primary voters to say, we don't have to play it safe anymore. We don't have to play it safe with Terry McCollum. Let's give Jennifer McClellan a shot. Let's, or someone else. Both the lieutenant governor and attorney general positions look like they'll be open. Perhaps Herring might be encouraged to go back to running for AG again, but I don't necessarily think so. And whatever office Justin Fairfax attempts to run for, he will be challenged. So it's not going to be Pollyanna over on the Democratic side. We have some interesting decisions to make in terms of who we put forward against you guys in 2021. And there's no guarantee that we are going to go with the most electable, particularly if it's in the first year of a Biden administration and voters want to take a chance and take some risks.
All right, let's stick to the Republican statewide right now. We've heard, well, obviously Amanda Chase was announced, Pete Snyder, Ron Whitman, George Allen would be interesting, sort of a redux of the '93 campaign where crime was the central issue. That might be interesting given the dynamics that are going on in the country right now and in the changes that are made in Northern Virginia with some of the Commonwealth attorneys up there. Bill Carrico, anybody else that we're hearing about speculating running, Andrea, for governor?
Well, I don't know if it's so much speculation as rumor, but somebody mentioned that it wouldn't be necessarily be a bad thing if Mr. McDonald were to run again.
Bob
Bob
McDonald.
McDonald.
We're gonna put the band back together, huh?
Yeah.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It's just, you said rumor.
Well, hang on, ladies and gentlemen. We now have Lynn Mitchell, who is about to break radio silence.
Thanks, Chris. No, while we are into the George Allen and Bob McDonnell, there is another name that I have heard from in the past, and that is Bill Bowling. Bill Bowling had wanted to, of course, he served lieutenant governor twice, and he wanted to run as governor, and we all know what happened with that. So, times have changed now, and maybe it would be a good time to have someone like a Bill Bowling.
Okay. So
I agree with Lynn 1,000%. I think, the time now, I think folks like Bill Bowling, and I hate to even hesitate to even say this, folks like me, I've been getting the itch sitting back and watching what's been going on. And I think it's time now for good people to stand up and start doing stuff and not cede the sidelines to the folks that are.
So are you throwing your hat in for LG or AG?
Not statewide. We'll see about something else, but not statewide. Look, you guys have heard me pontificate on more than one occasion about the need for experience. And I think if you've got folks that are running statewide, maybe LG is a job maybe somebody could do without having elected office experience. But I think AG and governor are too substantial for somebody to run without having served at all. Right. Well, so I wouldn't consider myself experienced enough to run for either of them. So I would.
Let's talk about some other LG candidates, people that you've heard, not speculate on. And then we're gonna jump into the fifth, and we're gonna go to the Democrats, and then the most recent conventions here in Virginia for the congressional nominations. Anything on LG that you're hearing?
DJ Jordan.
Really?
I've been hearing there's some people out there that would want him to do it. I would be among that group. I think he's great.
I hear his opponent in the House of Delegates races is considering LG as well.
That could be interesting.
Very. Other than DJ, anyone else? I've heard Puneet Alawalia.
Maybe Comstock would do it.
I've heard rumors that Puneet's considering it. Yeah, I've seen that too.
I think Barbara's a hard no. On
my conversations with her, she has not indicated to me that she has any desire to run it again anytime soon.
Okay, AG.
I'd be surprised about that.
I've heard Bill Stanley, AG.
Oh, that could be interesting.
I would love to see my former boss, Bill Stanley, jump in the Attorney General's race. Bill is an amazing person and fights for Southside Virginia expertly, and I would love to see Bill Stanley hop in.
Okay. Anyone else on the statewide ticket for Republicans that we've not mentioned, or you go, oh yeah, I did hear about that one. Last call for statewide and Republicans.
Well, if Donald Trump loses, Ken Cuccinelli's going to need a job.
Oh, DJ.
DJ, I was just about.
I can't believe you said that.
My question.
Trolling.
Did anybody mention Glenn Davis? Did anybody bring that up?
No.
I've not heard anything about Glenn.
Okay.
Glenn I've heard that name floated a little bit, that he might run for lieutenant governor. I've heard that name floating through the grapevine.
Again? Okay.
Going off of DJ's point, though, we do need to consider if, let's say, Trump gets reelected, even if he gets reelected or if he loses, Amanda Chase is going to try and get, Trump's mantle. That's not going to happen. She will collapse. It is very possible Cuccinelli might emerge, especially if we're talking about the band back together. George Allen hopping in, McDonald hopping in. Cuccinelli might position himself as the Trump heir.
Interesting. Okay, let's do a show of hands here who think Donald Trump is going to win re-election.
No, wow.
None.
50-50. 50-50. I don't know.
You think it's 50-50? Okay. Anyone
I
else?
think it depends. I think it depends on what the economy looks like come into the summer.
Okay, fair. Anybody else? At this stage of the game, down 8 points nationally in our Real Clear Politics average, which is 4 points worse than where he was with Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. It's very unlikely that he gets the popular vote. I don't see a path right now for the Electoral College. And right now, I think the most important question before the country is who's the vice president going to be for Joe Biden. DJ?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump's best weeks of the 2016 campaign were the week before he prepared for the debates and the week when FBI Director Comey announced that he had reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. What those 2 weeks had in common was nobody talked about Donald Trump for that week. When he's knocked off the front pages, he does better. When you're president of the United States, you can't get off the front pages even if you try, and he's not going to try.
Fair, very fair observation there, DJ. Well done. So that's how you do it, folks. That's okay. That's how you, yeah, Mike.
I think for Trump, with Hillary not being, his opposition and Biden being a more likable opponent, I don't think he's going to get those states back in terms of Michigan or Pennsylvania. I think that goes to Biden. And especially if Biden picks a strong VP candidate, I think he's going to pick Val Demings, especially with her police background. I think that could be a really powerful pick. And
Agreed.
She comes from Florida. And if Biden steals Florida, it's hard to see a Trump victory from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you look for in a VP pick is that the person cannot overshadow the top of the ticket. And I think Kamala Harris presents that problem for the Biden folks. And I think Susan Rice is a little too cast in the past. But I think Susan Rice is the inside, has got the inside rail on that one myself. Just the interplay of Washington, D.C. on national security and trade issues. Anybody else on the Republicans before we take over? So we don't think Donald Trump wins. The show of hands here was not there. It was someone had a half of a hand up. So Trump looks like he's going to lose. We're just going to go into that speculation. And there's a ton of people running for a statewide office or dipping their toes in. Everyone sees an opportunity. Democrats, because the state's trending so strongly towards Democrats, and Republicans seeing that they have a chance to get the depressed turnout for the Democrats in 2021 as a means to getting on the statewide success there. So let's turn to the Democrats. One of the problems that I have, one of the observations I have is there's a lot of people out there who are not thrilled with Terry McAuliffe as governor. I mean, no one's going, oh, gee, Terry's going to run. I shouldn't run at this. They're going at it no matter what. Brian?
I don't want to speak to DJ's party too much, but at least from my perspective, I feel like right now, McAuliffe is probably too conservative for the current Democratic Party in Virginia to want to put up again. I just don't see there being an appetite. I think they see, and rightfully so, that they have the best opportunity to get a progressive elected than they've ever had in the history of the Commonwealth. And they would be throwing away that opportunity if they didn't try to put somebody up like that, which is why I think probably from my standpoint as an outside observer, I think Jennifer McClellan is probably the more likely gubernatorial nominee. She's got all the stuff that they want to have out there at the top of the ticket. She checks all the right boxes, and she's got the experience to be able to do the job. So I think Senator McClellan, at least as far as I can tell, is probably their best shot at holding that office, even if Trump loses. Because I think if he loses,
what about if McAuliffe runs?
I think she can beat him. I think his day is over in the Democratic Party.
See, I don't. I think the Democrats in Northern Virginia are far more moderate, far more conservative than the rest of the country is being portrayed. And I think Terry McAuliffe wins it pretty handily if it's a primary, because I think you're going to have a lot of people dividing the not Terry vote. DJ?
Yeah, I would have to say probably based on what I've seen within the party, I'm gonna put myself between the two of you. I would say I don't think Terry McAuliffe is too conservative for the Democratic Party. I think the Democratic Party is actually much closer to the center than a lot of Republicans think it is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Terry McAuliffe would beat Jennifer McClelland. There is going to be a lot of push in the party to get past the old white guys, and Jennifer McClelland can be in that position to take advantage of that. But again, I don't know. If when you throw it up to a statewide party, Terry McAuliffe has the Northern Virginia advantage, which you could pit against McClelland. It would be a very interesting primary, a very competitive primary. I am not going to say I know who would win between those two because I genuinely don't know. It could end up being determined by really the aftermath of what's going on with the police violence in Richmond, which is looking very, very bad on the mayor right now. If McClelland spins that into an added part of her insurgency campaign, and McAuliffe doesn't respond to that well, then yeah, she could very well pull up the inside track and win. There's too many variables that we haven't solved yet between now and the summer of 2021 to say we know who's going to be nominated. I don't know who we're going to nominate.
Do you think Terry McAuliffe runs? And let's ask that right now. Do you think he runs? And if he does, when would it be the best time for him to announce? Because
Are we doing a show of hands?
What's that, Mike?
Are we doing a show of hands if you think he's going to run?
Okay, show of hands. Does McAuliffe run?
Yep.
Brian's a no. Merle, no. Okay. When should he get in? Because I mean,
after the November election.
After November.
It also depends if Biden asks. If Biden asks him to be Secretary of State or Commerce, is Terry going to pass that up for governor?
True. Good point.
Okay. Anybody else on the Democratic statewide? How about Mark Herring? Does he run? He's Attorney General of Fairfax.
He will.
No.
I think I will say that he will. If McAuliffe runs, Herring will not. If McAuliffe doesn't run, Herring might give it a shot for about a week. I think it is more likely that someone will tell Mark Herring it would be better if he ran for another term as Attorney General and worked on continuing to rehabilitate himself.
Because it's only Jay Jones, right, that's going against him for AG.
Well, Shannon
Taylor,
Henrico County prosecutor, has thrown her hat in the ring recently.
That would be a nasty, nasty fight.
Until someone convinces her to run for lieutenant governor.
Well, I think, Mark Herring has been one of the most political attorney generals we've had in a long time. And I say that even, with Ken Cuccinelli in that office. So I think he's good. I think he's jonesing to be governor. I think he wants to be governor. I think he's just waiting for his time. And that could be now, but I can't tell what he's going to do.
Okay, let's, so I think, how about Jennifer Carroll Foy, a relatively new delegate, Prince William County, young mother, VMI grad, certainly doesn't lack for ambition.
She's making the rounds and doing fundraising with the federal candidates. I saw her doing an event with Jerry Connolly. So, I mean, I think she's obviously lining herself up for something. I'm just not sure what it is.
She's one to watch.
She's absolutely one to watch. But here's what I hear from Democratic insiders: they just don't like her.
Why so?
I think they see she's overly ambitious. She wants something but doesn't give it back. I mean, she'll ask for donations, but she won't give endorsements. And I think a lot of people who would prefer Jennifer McClelland are like, we're going to go with Jennifer McClelland, and maybe you should think about lieutenant governor. Maybe you're just a little to Brian's point about experience. She hasn't been there that long. But I hear this from so many different Democratic operatives and folks out there. She rubbed the wrong way, and then liking someone goes a long way in this business. And I never hear that about Jennifer McClelland. I never hear that about Terry McAuliffe or Mark Herring or.
Well, speaking of not being liked, Matt just texted me that Lee Carter might be dipping his toe in to really set it ablaze. So
Can we not wish that into existence? Can we like not talk about that, Mike?
The thing that shall not be spoken of.
Yes, he's like Lee is such a bad candidate in general.
Well,
I
again,
mean,
look, no matter
Hey, speak. My apologies for interruption, but I would be very thrilled to see Lee Carter get smoked in a primary instead of trying to defend that Prince
well,
William
again,
seat. Thank you very
let's
much.
let's back this up and put our real political hats on here. No matter who gets in, they're all going to have a piece of the pie of the electorate. The question is who stacks up and who wins and by how much, and, and what happens at the divisions of the party. If say you have 5 people running for governor, it doesn't take much to get the 30 points for Terry McAuliffe. Honestly,
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely, and that I think is going to be the biggest issue with the Democrats. They're going to have so many folks with higher ambition that want to jump in, and the bar is so low. And when you see insurgent candidates like AOC and other folks out there who come in, they don't have a huge name ID, but they build that grassroots base up, and they go in and they take out long-term incumbents. Nobody's afraid to run against anybody anymore. So I expect you're going to see a lot of people running, and that's going to result in pluralities and crazy races that nobody's expecting to happen. That's what I see in the future.
What we're going to start seeing is what happened to the Republican Party 20 years ago, is that everyone wants to run for these offices, and they're going to start ripping each other apart. And the party is going to divide us up. You're going to see House guys challenging Senate folks, and that's the most difficult part of being in the majority, is not defeating the other team, is about not being defeated from within. Andrea?
I see it a little bit differently. I was reading last week a memo. I think it was the 8th District Democrats. DJ, you can help me out here if I'm wrong. They had written the platform on healthcare, and the state parties, the language that the state party ultimately adopted for the 8th District, the 8th District did not think was progressive enough. And I think that statewide, generally, they tend to be more, well, they tend to be less progressive than in other states like California or New York, because the ultimate language that ended up on that issue getting put into their platform was not what the 8th District voted on. It's not what they wanted. They wanted healthcare for all, and they ended up choosing language that was more of get there when I can via expansion of the ACA.
Well, this is the dynamic that's going to play out if Trump loses. What is the accelerant for turnout and swing voters in suburban areas, and can Republicans wade into that to get more votes? I did get a text about a potential candidate for statewide office, and Senator Siobhan Dunman, who happens to be my state senator. That might be an interesting pick because she's also an OBGYN, and coming from a suburban background with Ken Stolley as her brother in Virginia Beach, she could be a potentially dynamic candidate statewide. Let's move, if we can. Any other shots at LG? I've heard delegates Hala Ayala and Elizabeth Guzman for lieutenant governor. That would be an interesting dynamic there. But I do think at some point when McAuliffe enters, that one of these candidates, or maybe two of these candidates for governor, go, you know what, LG sounds pretty good, and I can build my career from there. But let's go, if we can, to the most recent fiasco in Virginia Republican history, the 5th District. It was considered to be a convention, but they're holding nothing on Chick-fil-A when it comes to efficiency of drive-throughs. Anyone want to comment on that corrupt mess?
I was actually
Yeah.
I was actually at that convention. You know what? I'm still in kind of shock that I think they wanted to keep us on our toes long enough so they could cook up an election result. I think there's definite pay to play going on. I think there's definite rigging of election results. I think Riggleman has absolutely the right to sue, and I think he should. I fear that the Republican Party, who has made great steps towards marriage equality, especially with Judge Gorsuch's opinion this week, it was a hard one to swallow. And I'm brokenhearted for my friend Denver Riggleman. I wish that we had a different outcome, and I'm worried about the party. I don't think Bob Good can unite the party. I'm going to be very honest. I don't think Bob Good can unite Republican voters, because those Riggleman supporters that I saw are furious with him. They feel like they got robbed, and they're not going to go over to the quote unquote, which I hate this term, it makes me gag, biblically bright red conservative. And they're not going to go over that easily. And I don't know if they go at all. So I'm brokenhearted for my friend.
Yeah, I don't. My latest intel is that I think July 7th is the deadline for filing, for having the State Board of Elections certify Bob Good as the candidate to be on the ballot. Currently, I don't think he's legally on the ballot. And that's going to be a determining factor whether Riggleman gets back in as an independent and can run. So we'll see about that. Always interesting in Virginia politics. Brian, you want to jump on that?
You know, to be honest, I think the marriage equality stuff that tends to be a smokescreen. I think what happened in the fifth district is exactly what has been happening in districts and in committees around Virginia. It's not about the elected official anymore. It's not about what they do or what they don't do. It's really about who controls the decision over who gets to run for office.
Yeah.
And I think this was a situation where the 5th district had a small group of people who felt like they weren't consulted, and Denver got in there somehow last time, and he wasn't their guy. And since he didn't want to play ball, they made sure to take him out and put in somebody that would. So I think this has less to do with policy, less to do with anybody's views on any issues or who officiated a wedding or anything, and more about simply more people, more examples of the dysfunction of our party apparatus and putting all the control over who gets to run for office in the hands of a small number of people.
Yep. I don't think that's inaccurate, but I think the question is really the level of, or the ordering of the magnitude. So I think that is the number one magnitude in this, but the accelerant as the excuse to get more people to show up, because that can't sell by itself. What can sell is being upset on the same-sex marriage officiating that Denver did.
Well,
if this game's
I don't think that was the
one at a time class. Hands. We use hands here. There we go, Andrea. There we go.
I know that the officiating the marriage it did matter, but I watched the appeal before the actual convention, where they had gone all the way up to the state central committee, and you've got a district the size of, according to that presentation, the size of New Jersey, and you have one polling place, and it was so tightly controlled by a handful of people that there was absolutely no way that any other, and I thought it was important. They had voted to have the convention at the Tree of Life Ministries, but there's 2 Tree of Life Ministries in the 5th district, and they didn't decide which one during the actual meeting, during the actual vote. That didn't come out until the call. And then they picked one where you had some delegates were going to have to drive, round trip 10 hours?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the whole thing was set up from beginning to end. It was.
How many of you consider the whole process corrupt? Raise your hand.
Moi.
Hands. Okay. Everyone's got them up there. Okay. Let's, I assume the screen's frozen there. Do you think Bob Good's going to be on the ballot? Yes or no? Raise your hand. Yes. You'll think he'll be on the ballot? No. Wow. You do, Lynn. You'll think he'll be on the ballot?
No. I have a question.
Go
Are you
ahead.
talking about on the ballot because of the missing the deadline, that he won't be on for that? Is that what you're talking about?
Do you think SBE certifies him on the ballot as a Republican
Okay.
because he didn't fill his paperwork out?
Okay.
I don't. I think the trend here is that you didn't fill out your paperwork. That's what they did last time to Nick Freitas and who was the other person in Hampton Roads? They got
McGuire has a paperwork problem, I believe.
Currently, John McGuire in the 7th?
Help me out, guys. I think so.
That's Nick
No,
Freitas.
it's Freitas has got the current problem. McGuire's got a problem with his fundraising numbers. He's done some funky. That's what I'm seeing
reporting
on
issues.
Twitter.
Okay.
Okay.
They'll clear that up. They got too many good people working on that campaign to let that linger. All right. So, so you don't think Bob Good makes it on the ballot? Does Denver Riggleman run as an independent, and does he win?
I think so.
I think he can. I think if Bob Good is not on the ballot, Denver runs and Denver wins because he's got more money and he's got an army. And I think he wins.
Okay. Anybody else on the 5th?
I have to agree with Matt. I think, at the end of the day, if Denver decides to run, he's got his base of support, and I think he'll get pretty considerable crossover because of the marriage equality issue. And if the Democrats run a weak candidate or they don't run someone, I mean, the 5th is not fertile territory for them by any means. I think he's got a good shot at pulling it off.
Okay, very good. DJ, final thoughts on the 5th congressional nomination?
I don't think the SB is going to interfere in a nomination process, however disastrous it was. I think they will allow Bob Good to be on the ballot, and whether Bob Good wins or loses, that district will look entirely different in 2022.
Okay. It's fair. It's going to be a lot more Northern Virginia centric, probably going into Prince William County there, and then up into Loudoun maybe.
I'm thinking I'm actually thinking it's easier for them to rope in Roanoke than it would be to go up into Northern Virginia. I think Northern Virginia is going to be about cementing the 10th.
Okay, but you got to do something with the 6th. You just can't,
Well, you can take Northern Fauquier and Greene and Madison and maybe some areas on the other side of Roanoke. Move the 9th out east a little. That's turn the 6th and 9th into Republican vote sinks.
Here's the question on everyone's mind about the new 5th district. Will it include the actual site of the convention for this year?
That's a good question now, isn't it?
I play from the back tees, Brian. It's plain and it's simple right here.
It will not include Lynchburg. I'll bet every dollar in my pocket it won't include Lynchburg.
How much money's in your pocket right now? Because I'm going to determine whether I make a bet.
About $100.
I'm not taking that bet. Nope.
Who carries cash?
No bet.
No.
Okay,
I think Roanoke goes in the 5th, not Lynchburg.
Let's jump over to the 7th now, because we're hearing some of the same problems in the Good campaign. I've heard some things about the Freitas campaign, which you don't like to hear. Again. But let's talk about the 7th. They got a convention again outside the district. Congratulations, folks.
We got to stop with conventions. I'm so over it.
How many people want to get rid of conventions? Raise your hand.
If COVID brings about anything, it will be the elimination of conventions, hopefully.
So far, it's gotten rid of it's put the designated hitter in the National League, and I don't think I'll ever let that one go.
Well, I mean, on the Virginia free rank last year, Nick scored 82nd.
I'm well aware of Delegate Freitas's voting record. Thank you.
No, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow.
Hey, it shows the validity of our rankings. We don't care about your partisan makeup. We really don't. We really don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The 7th district is one of these tough races for us now because the Democrats have a very solid Congress. Congresswoman Spanberger's doing her job. She's popular. People like her, and she's not been crazy. So I feel like whoever we end up putting in there, unless they get all their ducks in a row and run a perfect, no mistakes campaign, we're going to have a very hard chance, a hard time winning. And I think the one thing we can't say about Mr. Freitas is that he runs a clean, perfect campaign. He doesn't do that. So I just, even if he wins the nomination, I don't think we're going to win that seat.
Yeah, I think Cook report has that at an R+6, and it's still not even in toss-up territory for the Republicans, I don't think. At this stage, now it might, depending upon the candidate, I think Dana Ramirez might make it interesting, but I don't think that campaign's ready to go to the next level to run straight up against Spanberger, because the nomination won't be finished until the middle of July. And the chances of raising enough money to get you inside the margin of error by Labor Day or even by the middle of September is pretty remote at this point. Lynn, you had your hand up?
I did. I was just going to add on about, excuse me, Abigail Spanberger. Matt had mentioned Denver having an army behind him. Well, Abigail Spanberger has an army of women behind her. Those women are very, very active over there. They were the ones that helped sweep her into that office. So I agree that it's going to be difficult for Republicans to take over the 7th district as long as she's in there. And she's very well liked.
Yeah, she hasn't done anything to lose, I don't think, any voters.
No, and she does her job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. The problem, though, is structurally in that district, how many people are going to show up for Trump and going to flip the switch this time? Because she ran in 2018 and won, not in 2016. And that's a structural difference. And the turnout in that district is going to be critical, not just whether she was a good candidate. The question is, can the Republicans put up a candidate who can hold the Trump vote in the 7th down the ticket? And that's I don't think
so. Sure. I don't think so, only because Trump at the top of the ticket in 2016, think that it was completely different. Now there was Trump versus Hillary. Now it's Trump versus Biden. People are fired up, and their anger was directed at Trump in 2018. That anger is still going to be there in 2020. So maybe in 2022, when redistricting maybe carves up the 7th, the Republican might have a shot. But I think right now, Spanberger, she does her job. She has an army. I think she still holds it by 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the Trump vote in 2020 is going to be smaller than the Trump vote in 2016, particularly in a suburban district like the 7th. Particularly now that, again, as Michael mentioned, a Trump-Biden race is very different dynamics than a Trump-Clinton race, and again, Trump is the incumbent. And, undecided voters tend to break against the incumbent and the incumbent party at the end. We don't know how many undecided voters there will be in October, November. That helped Trump and the Republicans in 16. It won't help Trump and the Republicans in 20.
Okay, Brian?
I think Virginia voters have demonstrated that they are willing to split their ballots. It's not an uncommon thing to see, congressional candidates or outpacing the presidential candidate. I know it happened in the 10th district last time. So I can totally see a situation where you have people that go to the polls and vote for one person for president and vote for somebody else for Congress. And I don't think that just by virtue of the fact that we have, generally speaking, a majority of voters in that one area doesn't mean that she can't get elected. I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans cross over to vote for her if the candidate on our side is bad.
And I don't disagree with you. Again, it doesn't take them all. It just takes enough. Merle?
Yeah, I have to agree with Brian. I think I've seen a lot of vote splitting, and I live in the 10th district, so I know exactly what he's talking about. I'd like to just point out that of all the presidents we've had in recent histories, I think Donald Trump has probably the least coattails of any we've seen. And I say that because I reached back to the 19 elections, and Trump just put everything out there on the table for the governor of Kentucky, the governor of Louisiana, other candidates, and he lost miserably. I've always wondered why Trump commands such loyalty amongst the national Republicans, the rank and file, especially the leaders of the Republican caucus in the Senate, when he obviously just doesn't move voters towards people in offices underneath him. He's got a big following. I think he's going to turn out a lot of vote for him in the 7th district. I don't see those votes translating to votes for the Republican nominee for the 7th district.
Well, I think that brings up a very interesting perspective and strategy for Republican candidates in this cycle, because the Trump voters are going to show up anyway. I think there's an opportunity to campaign for the votes that you currently don't have, and to link yourself too closely to the president could be the strategic mistake of the 2020 cycle for a lot of these races, especially in suburban America.
Also, going off of Merle's point,
I agree.
I think 2020, I think for Trump and a lot of the Trump voters, they're only going to be excited for Trump. Whenever someone has pretended to be Trump, they don't win.
Mm-mm.
So whether that was a Corey Stewart, whether that's whoever, you can't out-Trump Trump and you can't clone Trump. He is completely unique. He is himself, and he can't be replicated. And his voters know that. Also, in the 7th, and tying back to what Matt said about Amanda Chase, if our candidate talks any or gives any leniency on the Confederate flag issue, if they are supportive of Confederate flags and statues, they're not winning that thing.
I
No.
think that
No, I agree.
of the list of people that are there now, I think that I don't think anybody's gonna get past that those suburban women. You're not. I mean, I think of that list, Tina Ramirez possibly could, but don't underestimate the suburban women. I lived in that district for 25 years. It's the only one that I really know. And when you start talking about Brandenville, Woodlake, Hampton Park, Magnolia Green, you get out into there, you get out into Powhatan, you get out into Goochland, into the, those inner Goochland suburbs. Do not underestimate. Those women will vote for a candidate before they will vote for a letter behind somebody's name if the policies are better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I live out that. I am in that district. I'll tell you an interesting story just for you to noodle on, and then we'll hopefully reconvene this group in another time, and hopefully on a regular basis. It's been a great conversation. Back in, I think, the beginning of October, we had some parents over for our son's volleyball team. And because we kept going to the stands saying, gosh, these people keep coming to the same games we go to, they might be the parents of our John's teammates. It's suburban America. You really don't know everybody. And so we invited them all over, and they all come in the house. There's about 24 of them, all married, and no one knew each other. And it was evident right out of the gate. And we put down, I said, Michelle, get some name tags. These people don't know each other. And they did. And as soon as they did, they're like, wow, hey, great. Yeah, the dudes became Bill, Jim, whatever. They stopped doing the, hey, what's going on, man? And then they had a few pops and loosened up in a little bit. And I had on the background the Virginia Tech Miami football game. And I realized no one was watching it.
Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.
Yeah, thanks. You aspire to mediocrity.
Oh,
Way to go,
Saxman. I don't want to hear it.
One of these years you're going to win an actual athletic national championship, and we're all going to be surprised.
What Sax said.
So anyway,
maybe you'll actually win a football game every once in a while. You won one this past year, but we're coming back.
Matt, round up to the nearest 27. How many national championships UVA has won?
That's what I thought.
And we're back. Okay, so the game is on, and I realized no one's watching the Hokies and the Hurricanes. And I go, can I ask y'all a question? And we were all gathered around the counter here in the kitchen, and they said, yeah, sure. We're having a good time. I said, where are y'all from? I know you're not from Virginia, because if you were, you'd be watching that game. None of them were from Virginia. 0 out of 24 in our house. And I said, okay, why did you come here and when did you come here? They came for 2 reasons. First of all, jobs. Second was schools.
Yeah.
And I said, when did you come here? Then universally, it was 15 to 20 years ago. And I said, where are you from? And it was Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, all Northeast, Mid-Atlantic states. So to Andrea's point, they don't give a damn about Virginia, and I'm going to vector off into Mike here and the Confederate flag. They don't give a damn about Confederate history and getting it right or studying it or putting it into context. That's not why they're here.
Yep.
They're here for jobs and schools, and that's about it. And until Republicans figure that out, because they're not knocking on doors and talking to actual people, they're lip dropping and going, oh, we knocked on all these doors. Bull cookies. No, you're not. I'm one of those doors. And none of you stop and say, hey, what's on your mind? The Democrats do all the time. And that's not a nuance in politics. That's a reality check. The Republicans, for some strange reason, don't have it in their being to do this. And every time you mention it to a Republican, they go, oh, you're just a rhino. I'm like, I'm not even that. Okay? I mean, balance yourself out. I don't have to vote for you people.
Yeah.
Final thought, Brian, you had your hand up, and we'll work our way around the screen here.
No, I can't. You said it as better than I ever possibly could. I mean, the reality here is that, Virginia as a Commonwealth is a place where people come, and some folks stay here, but the reality is, at least in Northern Virginia especially, and I deal with this all the time, and you can even say it about me, people come here and they don't have the built-in Virginia history love that some of us have. I have it, My family's been in Virginia since like the 1620s, but I wasn't born here. I didn't grow up here, but I am here, and my son is from here, and he's grown up here, and he's going to live here his whole life, I hope. And that's I think we need to be willing to talk to people in the language that they understand, and it's not going to be the same everywhere in the Commonwealth. And that's my biggest issue with the way that we try to run the Republican Party in Virginia. We try to run it as a top-down. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to think the same way. And if if the folks in Dinwiddie don't agree with the folks in Fairfax, if the folks in Bristol don't agree with the folks in Arlington, then, well, we're gonna let whoever can get more people to show up at a convention to decide what one size fits all. And it doesn't work. Every area needs to be able to run candidates that fit for that area. Northern Virginia Republicans are going to be different than Southern Virginia Republicans. And if we don't embrace that and accept it, then we're going to be a regional party that's not going to be able to do anything statewide in Virginia ever again.
Amen.
Anybody else? Andrea, last words, last thoughts.
It was to your point, there was just last year, I want to say last year, year before last, they did a study, the most recent study, it was either Brookings or ULI, of the migration patterns. And they found two things. They found, like you said, a huge influx from the Northeast moving south, and people from the middle of the country going west. I've been here in Virginia since I was 4. I was born in Hollywood, actually. But so I'm like a California girl. But the migration is going to continue. It's not going to stop. You see it most in the 3 large metropolitan areas, but that's going to start branching out, and it's going to get further west. And the further west that it goes will determine how to Brian's point, how the political candidates are going to have to message themselves. And I will close by saying that I've never met him, but Mr. Cox managed to take a district that was sliced to exclude him, and he knocked on every door. He wore out his shoe leather, and he actually won a district that nobody thought he could win. And I don't care what party you're with, because I'm currently without, I don't have a home, but it shouldn't matter. If you're willing to do the work and you're sane, then you go out, you meet the people, and you'll win.
DJ.
Yeah, I would just say that we are, in part to Brian, to Brian's point and Andrea's point, we are increasingly becoming a northeastern state. We're doing that in our voting patterns. We're doing that in our working patterns and everything else. We are rapidly approaching a point where folks like Matthew, are going to be the ones who, quote, have an accent. I grew up in New Jersey. We are the new normal here. And I say that with the self-awareness and irony that Northeasterners, we all think we're normal, and we're not. But
Yep.
But that's what's coming. If it's not here already, if you haven't seen it yet, trust me, you will.
Okay. But before we leave that and go to Mike real quick, what 3 states do you think were like the most nationally? This is the hardest part for Virginians to wrap, especially Republicans, to wrap their head around. We are more like Colorado, Michigan, and Oregon than we are any southern state. Mike?
Well, playing off of that, and to my final point, I actually think we are becoming demographically and politically like New Jersey. DJ, I lived in New Jersey briefly. I'm originally from Long Island. We have to get in our heads as a party. I'm an educator. We use this term differentiation. Some people are going to be better. Some kids are going to be better at certain things and require certain skills more than other kids. And other kids are going to be, have different strengths through reading, math, social studies. We have to treat our candidates as such. Matt, down in Southwest, that's going to be a radically different candidate than someone that's living by me. I live in Manassas, Arlington, that's going to be a totally different candidate. We have to be okay with that. Also, to that point, New Jersey is the Democrats outnumber Republicans 700,000, by 700,000. Chris Christie was able to win twice to the North. Larry Hogan, you should not be able to win in Maryland as a Republican. He did, because he said, enough of the social crap. I'm going to focus on the economy. I'm going to focus on jobs. I'm going to focus on education. And he focused on everyone. He built a diverse coalition. He won, both he and Chris Christie and John Kasich in Ohio, won Black support, Hispanic support. It is possible. We shouldn't let demographics or these Northeast changes affect us or make us scared. Let's lean into them and embrace them.
Three of the most popular governors in the country are Massachusetts, Maryland, and Vermont, all Republicans. Anyone else want to chip in here before we sign off?
I want to say, because I am the person with the accent, and I will say this. I had a college professor who was from Gate City, Virginia. Her name is Dr. Lana Whited, and she told me one time, and I thought it was the best quote ever, my accent's a political statement. And that's what it's always been. And what I'll say to that is, half the state votes like Maryland and the other half votes like South Carolina. And that is our problem. And I want candidates who will come to Southwest Virginia, where I'm from and where I think I live sometimes when I'm in Roanoke. I want candidates who can go back and forth in between and still be comfortable in both. And that's what I'm looking for. I think we can do it. We've just got to try. And and I will end, Chris Saxman, with, I may not like your football team at UVA, but Tony Bennett is an excellent basketball coach and a great man. So I will give you that, Mr. Saxman.
I couldn't hear that. You broke up. What was that?
I was going to give you credit for Tony Bennett is a great basketball coach and a great man.
I just wanted to hear you say it twice. Thanks.
Oh, now,
and this is you're playing. I'm playing from the back tees here, brother. I mean, it's just that easy. Take that hook out of your mouth from that national bastard.
I saw that coming from a mile away.
My mother's family's from West Virginia. We go visit, and I come back, and for a week I talk like my cousins. It takes me a week to assimilate back to my normal.
It's just so easy. All right, here's a number and a statistic for you to write down. In 2001, when Mark Warner won the governorship, neither candidate got 1 million votes. Okay, the total vote that year was just under 1.9 million votes. The growth in registered voters since 2001 is 1.5 million voters in Virginia. That means almost the entire growth in registered voters was almost the amount of voters in 2001. Wow. That's how much the state has changed. Okay.
Big
hey,
time.
Look, this has been a great conversation. I hope we can do it again. Lynn Mitchell, thanks for lining up the team at Bearing Drift. That's bearingdrift.com. Please log on, folks, if you're listening, and read all their great commentary and reporting on Virginia politics and national politics. I think you're an underutilized asset in the political game for both sides of the aisle. I think a lot of good stories are going to be written about these upcoming election cycles. Very important in Virginia 2020 and 2021, especially with the redistricting coming up. We might have 3 House cycles in a row, 21, 22, and 23. We've got some changing going on, and having good reporting out there and good commentary and a positive, fresh outlook is essential. Please stay clear of the comments section. God knows I do.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, we'll do this again.
Yes, this was fun. Thank you, Chris.
This is great.
Chris.
Thank you to everybody.
Raise your hand if you want to do it again.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
We're in.
All right, you're in. Good.
I'm in.
Lynn, did you want to say
Chris?
something? Yes, ma'am.
I did. Thank you. We appreciate it. A lot of us are writers more than talkers, but we do have opinions. So thank you so much for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Well, I think you're welcome. I think Bearing Drift is not hitting its weight right now in political impact. And I don't say that as a negative. I think it's an opportunity for y'all to weigh into the Republican in the political dynamic in Virginia. I think people are looking for editorial comments that are constructive, that can get people to think. And because, look, no one's paying attention to the editorial sections anymore, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, Virginia Pilot, or the Washington Post. There's no editorial board out there of any note that changes votes or gets people to do different things. And I think y'all have that place. And I wish you well in that space as you try to figure out where you're going to go and what impact you're going to have on the process here in Virginia, because I think it's a very important one for the Commonwealth going forward. So I thank you for all that you do, because I know most of you do it on a volunteer basis, which makes it even more extraordinary. So
It's not most, it's everybody.
Okay, try to
We're
change.
volunteers, yes.
We're all volunteers.
All right.
And I
Good
want
luck.
to brag on these guys real fast. They all are great. Come read them.
Well, all right.
And watch them on Grad New Podcast.
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get that stuff out there and get people consuming all that is Bearing Drift. Best of luck.
Will do.
We'll get this we'll get this video over to Lynn in YouTube. Y'all share it around and put it up on Bearing Drift, and hopefully we can develop a good audience for y'all going forward. All right.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Mary,
Thank
we
you.
have-
Thanks, Sax.
Yeah.
Good seeing you, buddy.
Go Who's.